David sucks. He's an evil, disgusting child murderer and pedophile. If you watched my 2025 video, you'll remember that I mentioned the murder investigation involving him, and that we already knew he was guilty. The internet detectives were able to find so much evidence against him within the span of a few days. Meanwhile, it took the LAPD 7 months to finally arrest him. Yes, you heard that correctly. He finally got arrested 5 days ago and was charged just yesterday. First-degree murder, lewd and lascivious acts with an individual under 14, and mutilating a body, and he pled not guilty to all 3 charges. Like that's gonna fucking work. I can tell you right now that this will not end well for him in court. You can tell by his mugshot that even he knows it's not gonna end well. If he is found guilty on all charges, he will most likely get life in prison. He could potentially face the death penalty, but there hasn't been an execution in California since 2006, and there are nearly 600 death row inmates in California, so most likely life in prison. But if the government doesn't kill him, another prisoner probably will. It has happened many times before, and it will happen again. But anyway, I would like to talk about the history of this case in particular. It all started on September 8, 2025. He was doing a show in Minneapolis as a part of his Withered tour. While all of that was happening, a tow yard worker noticed a foul odor from the vehicle, and he called the police. And they found heavily decomposed human remains. 8 days later, the body was identified as Celeste Rivers Hernandez, a 14-year-old girl who has been reported missing 3 times. At first, people were thinking he could have been framed for a murder because he was on tour, but in reality, he was stupid enough to leave the remains in his car and think nothing would happen. He wasn't exactly doing such a good job of covering his tracks, but apparently it was good enough to where nobody reported him to the police for grooming a 13-year-old girl. It just pisses me off that there were people who knew about this and did nothing about it and basically allowed him to kill her. He was on a fucking live stream with her for fuck's sakes, and she even appears backstage at one of his concerts. So that would mean that he had a whole team of people who were aware of his inappropriate relationship and did nothing. The reason why this pisses me off is because if he was reported to the police sooner by someone, then Celeste would have still been alive today. But now she will never have the chance to even go to high school. She had her life taken away from a degenerate pedo. Keep in mind that he first met her when she was 11, which would make him around 16 or 17 years old at the time. That's a junior in high school and a 5th grader. That's how fucked up it is. And it seems that she apparently threatened to report him to the police, so he basically killed her to save his own ass. But in the end, he's now facing life in prison, or even the death penalty. Most pedophiles don't even get the death penalty. Instead, they'll get a limited time in prison and a lifetime sex offender registry. So if David never killed her and she was still alive today, the most that would have happened to him would have been a few years in prison and he would have to register as a sex offender. But regardless of the outcome, his music career is basically over. No one is ever going to look at him the same way ever again. But with all the evidence that was already publicly known, it was very frustrating that it took so long for him to get arrested, because it was blatantly obvious that it was him. I get that the LAPD has to take their time with cases like these, but the fact that it was figured out by everyone else in the very same month is crazy. I hate seeing bad people get away with crimes, and that's what it felt like. He was basically allowed to chill in his $3.5 million mansion. The neighbors didn't even know he was living right next door to them. It turns out there is literally over 40 terabytes of evidence against him. Not gigabytes, fucking terabytes. Holy shit, that's even more evidence than I would have thought. Somehow this case might actually be much worse than we think it is. Remember, we only had knowledge of what was publicly available. There might be even more details to this case that we don't know about. Considering that it is over 40 terabytes of evidence, this might take a while before he is finally found guilty and sentenced to prison. So we should all keep an eye out and hope that he is found guilty, because we all know that motherfucker is guilty and he deserves to face the consequences for it. I personally never heard his music, but for those that have known him for a long time, are you able to separate the art from the artist, or has this case completely ruined it for you?